Hello all, it's James Johnson, aka Sulfurblade, and I am back here with Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 10, The Red Angel. And the Red Angel, well, from just an off-the-cuff feeling about the episode, it's alright. But I'm gonna break it down step by step. We start off the beginning of the episode having a funeral for Arian. And I think in the tradition of Star Trek funerals, it was very well done with members of the cast saying some very profound and nice words about Commander Arian and sending her off in a very Star Trek-like fashion. Sadly, I did get a little annoyed with Burnham's words, but they were stomachable. And I most appreciated, I think, Commander Saru actually singing for Arian at the end of the funeral. But all in all, I thought the funeral was really actually pretty well done. Then we move on to a roundtable type meeting with the Admiral, the CO, XO, and department heads, where we're considering what to do about the situation, and we have to have that stupid Tilly moment. The stupid Tilly moment where Tilly rushes through the door into this meeting with her superior officers and blabbers stupidly. Again, very annoying, not military-like, not professional, just not cool. But Tilly does end up bringing some relevant information. In fact, the stupid Tilly moment then leads to the big reveal. Dun dun dun. What everyone has thought for the entire season comes blurting out of Burnham's mouth. Or not Burnham's mouth, Tilly's mouth. Burnham's the Red Angel. Surprise, surprise. So then Spock, he decides to assess the situation and how much that makes sense, because it's obvious that Burnham is a hero, and he goes about this by spouting out some random Vulcan logic that didn't sound very Vulcan at all, but it's Star Trek Discovery Vulcan where we were listening to, which basically went on to describe Burnham as a hero in Star Trek Discovery Vulcan language, if you will. But after that, Section 31 appears. And here comes Captain Leland and Georgiou. They have to appear in the episode. We then have to have a meeting with Section 31 and the new information that we found out that Burnham is actually the Red Angel. And then we come to the conclusion that we have to capture Burnham. And that's where the episode started to lose me quite a bit. But it actually recovered itself at the end. And I'm a little impressed by that. So here we are, going through the narrative that Burnham is saying that we have to capture me. And I'm thinking to myself, why are you going to go out of your way to capture future Burnham, who obviously has more information than past Burnham does, and therefore isn't going to be capturable because future Burnham knows everything past Burnham knows. Not to mention, wouldn't future Burnham be more up to speed about what needs to be done to save the world than past Burnham? Why is it that the people in the past seem to feel that they need to save the universe by capturing future Burnham? That was like a plot hole that just didn't seem to make any sense to me. But then we move on and we find out later on that Section 31 is responsible for the tech. Yes, Section 31 created the Red Angel suit that allowed the time travel. Dun dun dun. But it doesn't stop there. No, not at all, because the suit, it disappeared at the beginning of the war. Wait, suit vanished at the beginning of the war? But Burnham's running around with the suit? And Burnham is here after the war? Now I'm starting to think, what, do we got two suits going on? Are there two different people running around in Red Angel suits? This is where I start thinking at this point, right? But maybe that's not the case. Or maybe it still is the case. I don't know, but yeah, the suit disappeared before the war. Then we get to introduce Emperor Giorgio to Stamets and Tilly and Dr. Hugh. One of my favorite lines of the episode happened in that section, when Emperor Giorgio looks at Tilly and just rudely says, "Stop talking," because Tilly was being her usual annoying self, and when Giorgio put her foot down and said, "Just shut up," it was like, yes, thank you, woohoo! Somebody told Tilly to shut up. Amen. Thank you. Good deal. So I was happy by that. Of course, Giorgio goes on to describe the Stamets I knew, which is basically opening up the fact that she's freely allowing the knowledge of the fact that she is not the real Giorgio, which we speculate. We're not sure how much the Discovery knows or doesn't know, because obviously we know that the Discovery went back to the Mirror Universe, so obviously we would think most of the crew knows, but we oftentimes don't know just how diluted the knowledge is. But it makes sense that she would talk to Stamets and the crew of the Discovery as if they knew, because they should. And so she's like, "Well, you're basically smarter than the Stamets I knew." And then she goes on to... Sorry, I've been sick and I keep having fits of coughs in between my talking. So I'm... when you hear that I stop talking, it's because I'm coughing. Anyway, so Giorgio goes and drops the whole pansexual bomb. Evidently, alternate... the Emperor Giorgio used to get it on with the alternate version of Stamets and Dr. Hugh, which I suppose is kind of an uncomfortable bit of knowledge that she shared with the two. Then we cut to a different scene where we have a little bit of girl time going on. We have Commander Nan and Commander Burnham basically making nice, and and Commander Nhan appreciates the words that Commander Burnham said at the eulogy, and Commander Burnham appreciates the fact that Commander Nhan did what she was not capable of doing over on the space station, and they have their whole girl empowerment scene. It was a useless scene that was completely put in for just that type of message. Didn't need to be in the show at all. Then we go to Sorrow working with Captain Leland, and Leland's a little offended that Sorrow's there, and basically says, you know, you're here because your captain doesn't trust me, and Sorrow kind of corrects him and is like, no, I'm here because I don't trust you. And then he goes about basically telling Leland that he basically doesn't trust him, and then Leland's, well, if you don't trust, or asks him for, well, how do you really feel about me? And Saru breaks it down for him. He's like, even without my ganglia, I can tell that you're gonna basically do the mission, but you're leaving out information, and I know it. Then Burnham breaks in, Saru vanishes, and Burnham goes about interrogating Leland about what he's not sharing. And we get into the whole Burnham's parents actually made the suit, and Burnham's parents were the original scientists that created the Daedalus Project and created the suit, etc., etc. And if it wasn't for orders that Leland gave, then her parents wouldn't have died. And so it wasn't Leland himself who actually killed her parents. It was the situation of her parents being in a certain location that they were ordered to go, and retribution from Klingons because of certain orders that Leland gave. And so it wasn't anything like Leland pointed a gun at them and killed them. It was actually, a reasonable person could have understood, and any Starfleet officer probably would have understood and reacted far better than Burnham did. The whole Burnham that's supposed to be a logical Vulcan, the whole Burnham that's supposed to be, less emotional than humans, the whole Burnham that's supposed to be, somewhat better than a normal human being because she's got this huge Vulcan influence, and therefore she knows how to control her feelings better, and therefore should be more logical and more rational. She behaved like a spoiled fucking brat, and then decided to deck Captain Leland twice. Just laid him the flock out. I didn't like that at all. Here we are, our main character, this character that's been shoved down our throat, acting non-Starfleet like. This is not the way Starfleet officers behave. This is the exact reason we do not like Burnham, is because her behavior so oftentimes is like a teenager. It's terrible. It's erratic. It's spoiled brat-like, and I'm frankly sick of Burnham as a character. Then we have a scene that I don't know why it was even in the show. Dr. Hugh, the character I still don't know why is in the show at this point. Why did we bring back Hugh? What relevance does he have to the actual storyline? He's just another character that needs some sort of airtime. And here we are giving Hugh a character some more airtime with another character that I'm wondering, why was she on this episode? Why is she still on Star Trek Discovery? Um, we're sharing FaceTime with characters that aren't really needed there at this point in time. It's like we've gone from being completely Burnham focused to being episodic beyond capacity of being episodic. So from a one character focus to a 25 character focus. But yeah, I digress. So Hugh goes and gets therapy from the admiral, right? And the female admiral is still there. And why is this scene happening? Why is it taking up time in this very, very busy episode? So this episode is very busy. There's so many different things happening, and it feels like it needs editing. It feels like somebody could have came through and edited out a lot of these superfluous parts, and the episode would have flowed in a far better manner. Um, the one thing about the particular scene is, while I thought it was a pointless scene, um, Dr. Hugh gives a great performance. And he always gives great performances. The actor is blatantly talented, and I hate saying that because he's also a jerk on social media, who comes after YouTubers. But the man's got talent, and I have to give talent where talent is due. Um, but yeah, he kills the scene. He nails it. He's really good in the scene, but what's the point of this scene? Why is he even still alive? I don't know. The show could have gone without that scene, but it's almost like they're throwing that scene in just so that they can have this good actor put in a good performance to, I don't know, maybe somehow improve the overall acting of the show. It's like, hey, if we watch 2 minutes of Hugh being a really good actor, we're going to forget about the 15 minutes of Burnham really sucking. What? No, doesn't work like that. But yeah, I digress. So now we skip past that scene, and we go to Burnham. She's beating up a training doll. She's venting her anger by beating up a training dummy, and she's just bashing this training dummy. I mean, you could tell that she's focusing all of that anger she has right now. She's just all pissy teenager, just going nuts on this training doll because she is this human Vulcan who's supposed to be in control of her emotions, but obviously she has no fucking control over emotions whatsoever. All she can do is just wail away at this training doll like she's a Klingon. What? And then the Spock comes in and gives a lecture. They sit down. They have a brotherly, sisterly scene, and Spock makes some stupid, satisfying comment to imply that he was satisfied to hear that she laid Leland out, used physical violence to knock Leland onto the onto the ground, decked him twice, gave him a bloody nose. Spock was satisfied to find out that news, that her adopted sister resorted to such satisfying depths of depravity, because Vulcans, they find great pleasure in acts of violence. What? No. This is wrong. This is just wrong on so many levels. Then Spock makes nice with Burnham, and to be honest, this whole scene just makes me sick. I don't want to see Spock making nice with Burnham. I don't want to see Spock forgiving Burnham. I don't want Burnham forgiveness from Spock. I don't like the Burnham character. By Spock forgiving Burnham, you're bringing down the character of Spock in my eyes. This is Spock is better than Burnham. Spock should not forgive Burnham. Spock is a true hero of Star Trek, and Burnham is like the dredge of Star Trek sewage. So I didn't like this scene, if you can imagine. And Spock, in some of the worst words I've ever heard any Spock say. In fact, Spock didn't say it. Spork said it. This is Spork. This is some strange alternate reality of Spock. I will not accept it as being Spock. And it said, "I accept your apology." Then we get back to the whole concept of we need to go capture the Red Angel. And I'm just like, why? Again, why do we have to capture the Red Angel? This is a future version of someone you have much trust in, who obviously has more knowledge of the situation and what's going on than you do, but you need to capture her? No, you don't. It doesn't it doesn't it doesn't have any logic to it. If your logical premise is that Burnham is good and Burnham's acting in the best interests of humanity, then why are you attempting to capture the Red Angel? All through this episode was this huge plot hole of why we are trying to capture the Red Angel. It doesn't make any sense. We have to assume that the future Red Angel has more information than we do because that future Red Angel has already been through the timeline and therefore knows more about what's going on than we do, and therefore is going to be able to make better decisions than we can in the past. So the whole concept of capturing the Red Angel is just a serious plot hole. Or at least that's how I feel about it through most of this episode. That's how I feel about the logic behind it. I still feel that way about the logic behind it because it doesn't make sense. But we're still getting to the rest of it, so bear with me. Then they go through the plan that Dr. Hugh is going to resuscitate Burnham after 2 minutes if the plan doesn't work. And so that right there, that's future knowledge. Future Burnham knows that she's going to be saved by the doctor, and therefore the plan can never work. So, major plot hole, right? And I'm just bashing my head against a wall like they know this can never work. This trap just isn't going to work. And then we go into talking about all sentient life being lost if this plan doesn't work. And again, where's the why? Why is all sentient life gonna be lost if we don't capture the Red Angel? I don't understand the correlation. There's a plot hole here. Then we have a pointless love scene between awful Burnham and Klingon Tyler. We could have done without that. That could have been a scene that could have been edited right out, and would have made this whole show a little less busy with stuff going on. Now we start to go through with we've finished the planning phase, and now we're going into actually putting the plan in motion. We're going to capture the Red Angel, and we see a new officer reporting to the bridge to take Commander Arian's station, Lieutenant Nelson, who's welcomed to the bridge by Captain Pike. He says, "Welcome to the bridge, Lieutenant Nelson." And I'm impressed. We actually recognized a new character on the bridge and gave that character a name. So little things like that are now being done in Star Trek Discovery that they couldn't figure out how to do in the entire first season. But now they're getting a little bit better with some of the name dropping. And that was a good scene, at least for me, in that it helps reinforce that they've made some progress this year. And now we get to one of the final scenes before Burnham is set to asphyxiate, and Spock is strapping her into the chair, and basically implies that if this doesn't work, then he's going to break Starfleet regulations and kill for her. I assume that the plan is to kill Leland, maybe? That's who he's aiming her hatred at for her. And yeah, it's very un-Spock-like. It's a very stupid thing to say. It doesn't fit Spock. These people just don't understand Spock. The writers writing Spock, they don't get him. It's a travesty, the writing for Spock. But yes, Spock says that he would kill for her. Such love he has for his sister. Then we actually we begin the trap. And amazingly enough, this was actually done pretty well. So Burnham starts to suffocate, people start to panic, Georgiou's ready to run to her rescue, the doctor's ready to run to her rescue, Pike still hasn't given the order to rescue her yet, but people are already wanting to rescue her before Pike has even issued the command, and Spock is standing there with a phaser saying no. You can't rescue her. And everyone's like, Spock, get out of the way. And then Pike eventually is like, no, we have to rescue her. Stand down, Mr. Spock. And Mr. Spock's like, no, we have to let her die, or else this trap cannot work. And Spock is so right on the money. It cannot work unless you actually let her die. If you don't let her die, there's no way the plan will work, because it's thinly veiled. It's not credible. The future version of her will know and will not come. Unless you actually follow through with the threat, there's no way it's really going to work. And finally, that huge plot hole got filled with Spock. And I'm glad it was Spock who filled that plot hole, because it at least gives some, gives me something to forgive this horrible Spock for, because normal Spock would have done the same thing. He would have known to have done the same thing. So we saw a little bit of real Spock here by standing his ground, making sure that his sister died. And that was one of my favorite. I think that was my favorite scene of this whole episode. She really died. She was freaking dead, and I was cheering. It was like, yes, celebrate. The trumpets were blaring, the music was playing. I mean, it was like the 4th of July. If ticker tape could have been falling, and bands could have been playing, and people waving their hands and screaming, "Burnham's dead! Woohoo!" I was happy. That was a happy scene right there, seeing Burnham dead. That's how much I dislike that character, because that character's just awful. And she was dead. She was dead! Well, at least she was dead up until the time the whole magic beam comes in from the Red Angel, who just magically brings her back to life by shooting her with the beam. Okay, so future technology. Advanced. Okay. Future technology bringing person back to life by pointing a beam at him and shooting him? Really? Isn't that just a little bit of a stretch? Isn't that a bit a little overpowered, don't we think? But yeah, when the writers can't figure out a better explanation, let's just use a magic beam. And so I forgive the magic beam, I suppose. It brought our horrible character back to life, sadly. It would have been better if she just died. Because honestly, the next part of it revealed it wasn't Burnham in the suit. And so she could have died, because she really wasn't needed to live. God, why didn't they just let Burnham die? That would have been a far better scene if she just would have died. And they would have captured their Red Angel. And now here's where the other big part of the plot hole gets filled in. Maybe there isn't 2 suits. Maybe it's just the 1 suit, because maybe the 1 suit that disappeared at the beginning of the Klingon War is the suit that we're in, because it's not Burnham, it's Burnham's mom. And since it's Burnham's mom, then Burnham's mom doesn't have Burnham's knowledge about the things that are going on. Burnham's mom has to go off of recorded history to know what's going on. And so Burnham's mom is not privileged to the plannings of the trap, right? Like Burnham would be. Burnham would have intimate knowledge of all the plannings to trap her. But Burnham's mom doesn't have that intimate knowledge with it, and so therefore can't avoid the trap. And so the fact that they could trap the Red Angel, it was like a huge plot hole. It couldn't be Burnham if they were actually going to pull it off. And it wasn't Burnham. It was Burnham's mom. And so 2 huge plot holes that were looming through the entire episode ended up getting filled in at the end of the movie. And fairly well. So, the end of the show, not the movie. So, that is this episode of The Red Angel. Now, what do I actually think about this episode? I think it was an overly busy episode. I think it had a lot of scenes that could have been edited out, weren't really needed. Much of the Vach Tyler and Burnham romance scenes were just pointless. They were extra fill. The Doctor and the Admiral scene was extra fill. So there was a lot of extra filler scenes that kind of made this episode feel quite busy. And they didn't really have a whole lot of focus to the end outcome of the show in the long run. However, if you can get past the busyness of it, and you can get past the Burnham-centric problem with much of the episode, being that Burnham is such a weak and unlikable character, if you can get past your distaste for Burnham, and you can get past the distaste for the terrible writing of Spock, then there's something to this episode. This episode actually has some credibility of decent sci-fi-ness to it. So, in the tradition of Star Trek Discovery, where where they make a few improvements and then make a major step back, and then make a few more improvements and take a major step back, and then make a few more improvements and make a major step back. Well, they've done it again. They took a big step back last week, and here they are making improvements again. So I'm going to give this episode some thumbs up. Is it the best episode of the year so far? No. That was still episode 8, as far as I'm concerned. But this episode is actually maybe the second best episode of the season. And that's, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm seeing the progress they're making, and because they made progress in episode 8, it feels like I've seen some of it come to fruition here in episode 10. But, it's hard for me to swallow a lot of the poor writing with Spock. It's hard for me to swallow Burnham. I want to see her actually die. I mean, this episode would have been the best episode of the season, bar none, if you actually let her die. If she would have been dead at the end of the episode, this might have been one of the best episodes of Star Trek ever. But yeah, I digress. So yeah, this is the Red Angel. To an extent, somewhat watchable. To an extent, pretty busy episode. To an extent, some fun moments to it. Tilly being told to shut up. Burnham actually dying. I mean, there's some things in this episode that you can't help but not like. And so, yeah, overall, I give this episode a couple thumbs up, and maybe a 6 out of 10, which is pretty good for a Star Trek Discovery episode, but not quite as good as episode 8. Anyway, I'm James Johnson. This is my channel. Hopefully you appreciate my content. If so, leave a like and subscribe. And I also want to go over one quick non-related, well, semi-related thing to this, is that because of some changes to the YouTube search filter, my channel isn't being as easily seen on Google for the purposes of Star Trek Discovery reviews. And that's because YouTube has disabled the ability to search content by how recently it's been produced. And so, because this is going to be a brand new episode of Star Trek Discovery, season 2, episode 10, and I'm a small channel that doesn't get a lot of hits, I'm going to have a lot less views than I have in the past, and I felt that with the last episode. I actually went down from about, usually I get 600 views or so. Episode 7, 8, 6, 7, and 8 were in that category, and then 9 I dropped all the way down to 150, and that was after the whole New Zealand stuff that has caused YouTube to change its filtering. And so, I don't know, I'm bringing this up because if you're liking what I'm saying about Star Trek Discovery, can't you help share my channel out there with some other people who are interested in this topic? Let them know that I am doing these videos so that maybe it can make up for whatever temporary. YouTube is claiming that the turning off of the functionality of being able to search stuff by how fresh it's been produced is only a temporary thing, and that things will go back to normal. We haven't seen that happen yet, but for now, I could use some help getting my content out there via word of mouth. I would appreciate that. But yeah, that's it. Anyway, hopefully you guys you have a great day, and until next time, peace.